Hello and welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Buy Round Interview Show. We've got a very special guest today, someone that's played a ton of NRL games, but probably the avenue that I know you from. It's Jason Stevens, by the way. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Jimmy.
you for coming down here.
Pleasure, man.
So we've met a couple of times around the traps, but I knew about you when I was a teenager. So I first came to Australia as a 15-year-old, obsessed with NRL, and I took home with me like multiple jerseys. I got a Nutrigrain footy, and I never used it. Like it was just like I felt like bad for using it. I just was in the house only. But I also brought back with me a couple of DVDs, the best of the Footy Show. Where you featured quite heavily.
You say this, but I'm calling BS because I was a big fan of yours from you playing, and I saw you at Cronulla Cinema, and I go, that's James Graham, and obviously I've been retired 10, 15 years, and I said, I kept saying to my wife, I wonder if he knows me from footy, and you walk straight by.
Oh, well, mate.
So I had to introduce myself, and you were just like, oh, yeah. Because obviously I put on a bit of weight since I retired.
Well, and you don't tint the hair anymore, eh? Mate, genuinely I think
brushed, but appreciate it. Appreciate the kind words.
I did have the best of the Footy Show for the decade, and then there was like the best of 2003 it would have been. So I was familiar with you. I think I've looked back at your career, and I'm pretty safe to say for the tour in '97 I would have been at one of those games. I think I was at Old Trafford.
Oh yeah. That's right. The Super League. That was amazing. Yeah.
When you played for the Sharks, you played against St Helens at Nosey Road.
We did.
Yeah,
we did. I scored a try.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, that was because Johnny Lang, the coach, he said, if you didn't score, I dived over from dummy half, and they did the. They looked at it. They weren't sure if I got it over the line, and he at half time, he said to me, if you didn't score that try, I would have pulled you off a front rower going from dummy half. And I was like, I
scored. Yeah. Well, guess what, Coach?
That was Sean Long's first game.
For Saints.
For St Helens, yeah. He made a break, and I chopped him down. I came from behind, and everyone, because there was big raps on him, and I got across really quick, and he looked at me like, oh, you got me. But I was surprised at my own that I just knew he was going to step, and he stepped one of our players, and but he went on to be, that was his first one. He went on to be a really great player.
Well, so we have crossed paths a number of times. I'm aware of you. I don't think I would have ignored you at the cinema.
You were focused. You were with your wife. You had your popcorn.
Probably thinking about what I'm going to watch as well. Yeah.
And plus, as I said, I'm not the fit being that I was. Actually, my mother-in-law, I put up a picture on my Instagram, and it was from 5 years ago, but she didn't realise, and she said, "Oh, you've lost your weight. We're so happy. We're a bit worried about your weight and all that." And I'm like, "Oh yeah." I still haven't told her. That was from 6 years ago. And I was like, I've really got to do something about So back to the sand hills for me.
Mate, with that Footy Show.
It was good days.
How do you look back and reflect on that?
Yeah, well, funny, a lot of the skits me and Matty Johns, we just came up with them on the, honestly, Chris Anderson was at the club at the Sharks at the time, and we were getting flogged like left, right and centre. And Matty would just say, hey, we've got the cameras here after it. Do you want to do something? And we came up with some skits that, just I came up with this idea, then he came up with this idea. Like I remember I said, let's walk down the beach, and I'll put my hand in your jeans, and then he said, and I'll throw the sand at you, and we just came up with we kept ad-libbing, and it was funny, man. It was really, really funny. I was really you know, they were great days in terms of just like, you know, exploring that whole territory of being creative, but not really realizing it. But Matty was just so natural, you know, and he was always up for anything. So
yeah, did that like obviously you know a well established front row at the time. Did that like give you like another side of fame? Did that change your perception in the, like when you bump into people in the streets or the punters at the game?
Well, because Maddie and I were was supposed to be going out as a couple. I particularly remember at Penrith, supporters just giving it to me about, you know, being gay and stuff like that. And at the time, see, I was celibate as a Christian. That
was all part of it.
Well, no, that was I was yeah, that was part of it.
Yeah,
that's right. You're right.
I randomly knew that about you from those DVDs I took back all those years ago.
That's right. So I'd actually get, if I went out to a pub or something or that, I would actually get. It became quite hard because, you know, guys who had a few too many beers like would have a go at you about, you know, potentially, you know, throwing gay slurs at you and stuff like that, and I wasn't gay. I was actually just keeping myself for marriage, but we were just having fun. But you know, guys just want to they want to take the piss sometimes. So it was actually part of it was actually, you know, like if there was a few times I could have got into some blues at pubs, but I just because guys were getting real narky with it. But yes, you're right. It opened up a whole new sort of world in terms of, and particularly with entertainment stuff, because after that, Tony Squires, who does he got me on his show to start doing entertainment reporting, and so I did that with a show called The Fat, which was on the ABC, and I got to like interview Heath Ledger and all these different sort of actors and musos and stuff like that. So it actually did open up a whole door, not realizing that one day I'd do films as well. So yeah, it was a great thing. The effects of it, the knock-on effects were great. But during it, I tell you, like there was some real like heat. Like actually, the Footy Show producer, I went and talked to him and I said, mate, I'm getting a lot of heat now about me and my sexuality, and he goes, I've got the perfect thing for you. We're going to do a competition to find you a wife. So I don't know if you remember that, but they did this whole competition.
So it was almost like The Bachelor.
Yeah, it was like the first and mate, they took the Nicky out of it, and it was funny. It was so funny, but they went to like I think it was Sexpo to get a couple of so everyone had to put in, that was back in the days of VHS tapes. You couldn't do it electronically. So they all had to film tapes and send it in. And Glenn Pallister, who was a funny guy, a great executive producer, he rang me up one day and he said, I've got your wife. She's sent in her tape. Come to North Sydney where the Footy Show was, Crow's Nest, sorry, and we'll get you married live on the Footy Show. And I'm saying, can you just hold on a second?
Yeah.
Hold on a second. He goes, we'll pay for it. I go, what is it paid? Like it's free. The
yeah.
Goes, we'll pay for your honeymoon. And I said, well, can I just see? And I travelled all the way from Cronulla into this Channel 9 studio, and it was just like, this guy had no idea. He just wanted to get me married on the Footy Show, but anyhow, it was fun. It was fun. That went for ages. It went for ages. Everyone kept sending it in, and I kept going, mate. They had a girl dress up as a nun and say, I'm gonna get rid of my I'm going to leave the nun. That's not the nunhood, but I'm going to leave being a sister because I think you're the one. It was really funny. It was funny, but there were some genuine people, and I ended up taking out a friend for the actual date because we had to bring it to an end because it was getting a bit much, but it was fun
because it was quite edgy.
Yeah,
as well. Like I look back at some of those tapes, and I don't know if you could don't know if you
I
can
think
do.
it's, I know.
I don't know if you
don't
could
think
do
so.
it now, and you can debate whether that's a good or a bad thing. But it was like it was
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
It was edgy.
You couldn't, because in the world of film, for example, like it's frowned upon now if you're playing a gay character and you're not gay.
Yeah.
So Matty, he'd cop a lot of flack if he did it. So it's everything's changed, that whole era. But it was the Footy Show was on fire for a lot of years, and I think Matty was a big part of its success.
Yeah. So with your your celibacy and your religion, like, I mean, to have that like played out must have been because it doesn't just impact you; it impacts like the people that you know and love as well. Like,
yeah, but the funny thing is, it was my brother who was also playing. He played with the Saints and the Sharks. He had 3 reconstructions, so he ended up sort of retiring early, but and becoming a minister. But it was him that actually sort of, even though we were always church-going people, he sort of really grasped onto Christianity at another level. And I still recall, like, he'd just done his shoulder again. He'd broken into first grade again and then done his shoulder. And I still remember being at the hospital with him because, back then the care wasn't the same. Like, so we literally drove him to the hospital. They couldn't put his shoulder in for about 4 hours. No one would see him. So his shoulder's out. And they've given him no medication to help with the pain. We helped the doctor pull his shoulder back in. Anyhow, after that, he went to Greece, which is my heritage. He's my grandfather's Cyprian, and while he was over there, he had a real encounter with God, and he said to me, he rang me and he said, "I'm going to save sex for marriage." I said, "I think that's God's way," and I remember going, "Oh man, you're in Greece." Like I said, "Can't you become a Christian on the way home? Don't waste Greece. There's women everywhere." And at the same time, I was playing with a guy at Saints called Brad Mackay. I don't know if you remember Brad, but he was same junior club as me. Played for Australia on multiple occasions, New South Wales. He was part of that real tough era with New South Wales, with Sirinen and Ian Roberts. And
did he play for Leeds or Bradford as well?
He went over to Bradford.
He did, I remember.
He did play Bradford, yes, that's right. Odsal was in a stadium. And he's there was a piece about Brad which I admired, like he was and he started taking me to a Bible study. And I said to him, "Brad, you don't need to, because I go to church, I go to church every week." But I was going to church every week, but at the same time, I was just living a life that was just doing the best I can. I was chasing every woman I can, and I'm not pointing the finger at those type of things, but I found fulfillment in this relationship with God, and so it began to change the way I saw things, and Brad was very much a part of that journey. My brother Paul was very much a part of that journey as well, and it's hard to explain, but it was the peace that I got. Well, I'd never had that peace in my life, actually. I never found peace like it. And I went from like believing in God to like really belonging to Him, because I think a lot of people do believe, but they haven't got that connection and that relationship. And it's kind of like a lot of people would say, "Do you believe the Prime Minister exists?" And they go, "Yes, of course, we see him, we know a bit about him." But then you can ask, "Do you know them personally? Do you know the Prime Minister personally?" And most would say, no, we don't, And that's the same. That was kind of like my relationship with God. I knew of Him, I believed, but I didn't have that personal sort of friendship with Him. And that's what really changed everything for me.
And so you do your Bible studies, your brother goes to Greece. And was it like switching off or on a light? Was it like a gradual, like, hang on, I need to think about this or work on that relationship? Was it just
for me?
One day you're, church-going person and, just carrying on with life, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And then the next day it was like, boom, no, I'm done.
Yeah. And it wasn't so much like me saying, I have to change my behaviour. It wasn't that, and that's not what I find Christianity is about. Christianity is falling in love with God, and then you seeing that, wow, what I have with him is and then everything sort of drops off, everything else drops off, it's like it's not as appealing, and it's just not as appealing anymore. And for me personally, I saw the impact of just having continual one night stands and womanizing, and I sort of saw my dad go down that path. And was unfaithful to my mum and left us in a very bad way. And I sort of thought, I'm going down that path. I'm going to be exactly the same. I couldn't stay faithful to one woman, and didn't matter if they were, gorgeous and great person, because I was fortunate enough to have some of that. It was just, there was something in me that it was never enough, and I wasn't satisfied, and there's a saying by I think it's I think he could be English, Charles Spurgeon, this guy, and he's passed on, but he says, our hearts are restless until we sort of find him, and I'm paraphrasing, but that's the best way I could. I was restless, really restless with. And there was no way I was ever going to be able to stick to one woman. There's just no way. And so I think Christianity is not, in a sense, is not about I've got to change my behaviour. It's like I've fallen in love with this one who died for me on the cross, and that's transformed me from the sort of inside out. And then things change, things fall off. Yeah. I hope you don't mind me sharing all that stuff.
No.
You probably haven't had many people talk about that.
No, well, no. I find it really interesting. Really interesting. Like, probably what intrigues me is you close friends, because when you go from that lifestyle to that, like the people you associate with, like,
being in that footy environment,
in the football environment, people would think people would be genuinely thinking you were taking the piss.
I was at St. George, and I failed to mention that I was in a relationship with a really lovely girl, but I wasn't doing the right thing, and I just was like, oh, here we go again, like same change girls, same anger within me, same frustration, just a different girl now. And there was the team chaplain, because a lot of teams have chaplains, and I basically looked up and saw him, and I said, "Can we have a chat, Rev?" And we had a chat, and this guy Graham Crew, loveliest guy, he was the one who encouraged me as well. But when I made that decision, I remember going to the boys at training, and I don't know why I did it this way, but I said, "Boys, I just want to let you know, I've found God, and I'm not sleeping with anyone until I'm married." And the laughter, it was just like, and then one of the guys came up to me and said, "You can't change. You'll never change." That's what they said. And I remember it like, oh yeah, like, how am I going to change actually? But I didn't realize that all I have to do with God, you kind of make the choice to change, and he changes you. It's very different to the normal exchanges we have in relationships. In a sense, it's a supernatural thing where he actually begins to change you. And but the boys, like, because they saw me night clubbing I was never a drinker or anything like that. But if I went to a nightclub, I was just like, how quickly can I sleep with someone, and how, and can I get a couple on that night and all that stuff. I was just into it like that. And they saw that, and then when they came out. But in the end, it's funny, because in the end, especially when I moved to Cronulla, and they all knew my stance. If a girl did come up at a nightclub to talk to me, some of the guys would go, "Hey, we just want to let you know, you're not going to get nothing out of him." And I was like, "Hey guys, can you let me work that out with her," because I haven't had a date in a while. So some of them were even defending me, but Yeah, that was.
Yeah, like leave him alone.
Yeah, like
Leave- yeah,
just to where we're protecting him. He said he's going to save sex for marriage. So like
that's
we see you with your cleavage and it's not going to happen. All right.
That's cock blocking to the nth
That
degree.
was so funny. Sometimes I just wanted to say to the guys, just beat it for a second, man. Just let me have a little. Just let me.
So how old were you when this?
I think when I made that decision, I was 22, just turned 22. Yeah.
And was there anything else, or other areas of your life that went through significant change?
Yeah, I think. So I think the way God viewed me was that I was like, when my dad had left when we were very young. My sister Vanessa was walking across the road with my other sister Angela to call my brother and I. We were playing cricket across the road, and she got hit by a careless driver, and it was a very traumatic situation. And not to have your dad around, he had recently. I can't remember if he'd recently left or left just after that. I think he had recently left. We were sort of just a pretty broken family, to be honest with you, because the healthcare system, the doctors didn't give my sister much hope at all, and it was, and you've can I say on a side note, you've met my sister Vanessa, and like she loves, she's you've been so warm to her, you give her a hug, and I think at one stage she tried to grab your ass there, but yeah, that was fun. She's such a great, a girl, but she's had her challenges and she never gives up. And so we went from this sort of family, we were fairly broken. And I think what God did for me was... How
old are you when you...
Vanessa was 7, I was 8, my brother was 9, and my other sister was, I think, 6. So we were very young. But yeah, we went from, and Vanessa was in hospital for a long time, motionless and because it was severe injury. And, my dad, who's now passed, he came and saw her once. I do remember that. But then I never heard from him again until the 1993 grand final with St. George when I was playing against Brisbane. He wrote a letter to the club the week before it, and I was like, I didn't even know where this guy is. He just had no... I kind of think he just had no idea that of his decisions and how he left us for, he left us for one of my mum's friends, and just never heard from him. We had no father input. So I think God saw that I was actually very broken and fragile on the inside. Add to that the fact that I was quite overweight as a child and was bullied a lot at school, and I had this deep insecurity that I'd never, have a girl that would, reciprocate feelings for me. And there was this one girl that I had this massive, massive crush on. I remember in year 6 we used to take out the bins together, and we used to get along so well. And I would love to ask her out, And it was almost like she read my mind. And one day she said to me, she goes, I would, I think you're really great and all that. It's just that, and she sort of inferred that, you're big, you're too big. I'm not attracted. This is year 6. And I'm like... It really crushed me. I remember. I mean, if that girl's listening, she's probably spitting chips now. I mean, she could have been living on the water in the Esplanade. But anyhow, that's another story. I've done really well with my wife. But yeah, so I think God, when you say what he did, what the great thing about God, they call him the great physician. He's a healer, and he heals wounds on the inside. I think a lot of people are carrying wounds from, things that, happened with fathers. I remember reading even about, I don't want to speak out of school, but just, reading about Braithen Astor and his, who I know, a little well, and, and his dad, passing on in a bad way. And, I was just thinking, wow, there's a wound, there's a real wound of that loss. And I find God comes in and he has the power to heal the wounds of people. And I think a lot of the times we turn to again, to the alcohol and to everything to ease the pain of. Because I used to. I've never told anyone this, but I used to in year 12 we used to go out to a nightclub and stuff like that, nightclubs, and I remember seeing all girls my sister's age who used to go to school with her, and it was deeply. I used to go to the toilet in the nightclubs and just bawl because I was so hurt and so just with what happened to my sister, and I used to think, her friends are there having fun, and my sister's struggling to walk and she's got to fight to talk, and it was just it was really, really hard. I found it very hard, and so I think when we talk about what other ways with God, I think was the fact that He has come in and brought peace to a lot of areas. I'm not saying life is not hard in certain ways, and it still is an ongoing thing, especially with my sister. My mum turns 77 this week, so and she's a carer along with my other sister, and there are ongoing sort of practical stuff that makes life very challenging, but we know that God's there through it with us, and because a lot of people ask me, how can you believe in a God that allowed a tragedy like that? And when I look at God's life, he suffered greatly. He didn't immune his own self from suffering. Actually, the Bible says that he was a man of sorrows, and he was accustomed to great pain. And he himself suffered rejection from his closest friends, and he's kind of been through it all, and so he's the one that can relate to our pain and our sorrows and help us through it. So I didn't want to, in a sense, I always say to people, I said, why would I ever run away from the only one that can help me? So I know he's the only one that can understand and help me. So it's never been an option to leave faith, because it's just, I don't know where. There's no other. For me, there's no other answers. There's nothing else that satisfies either, because I've tried it all.
Mm. Mate, the story about your sister Vanessa is,
it's hard. It's been hard. She and Vanessa will listen to this, and she's like, she needs to know, our life would not be the same without her, and we're so grateful to have her in her life. And I look forward to look forward to her future still, and one day we believe we will all pass on, and the Bible talks a lot about heaven and about what is there for those who believe, and that there's no more pain, there's no more sorrow, and she'll have she won't have a disability anymore in heaven. And I believe that's I believe it's very real. So a lot of people would say it's pie in the sky, and but for me, the way Christ came into my life and just gave me that peace, I just can't explain it. I can never doubt that He was the one that rose again, and so I think that's what it all comes down to, James, too, is really because people say to me, if it's good for you, it's good for you. If that's good for you, if that works for you, well, that's good for you. But I thought, but if He did really die and rise again, then shouldn't that, and it's a historical fact, so shouldn't that mean something? If that fact is real, and the historical evidence is overwhelmingly, points to that, speaks to that, shouldn't that be something we should think about? Because otherwise, what are we here for? What's our purpose? Do
you ever get into debate?
Sorry, I'm going on a bit.
No, you keep. I just wanted to ask if you ever get into debate or conversation around this, and talk to someone who perhaps would be an atheist or
Yeah.
have other religious beliefs?
Yeah. Well, it's a good time to bring in a mentor of mine who has now passed on, Harry Eden. James, you would have loved Harry. Harry played for South's Saints, I think the Roosters. He was in that Bob McCarthy era, just as hard as nails. So he was my junior coach growing up, and I, even though I didn't have a dad, I still remember Harry like picking me up one day from dropping me to home, and he said, Jace, he said, if you train hard, you can be as good as Blocker Roach. And I just remembered that. I remember thinking, far out, man. That's like the fact that he had played at a high level and thought I could do it. I was only 14, and he was a real encouragement to me, but he was a complete non-believer. So when I was younger, the funny thing was he used to say to me, when he see me bludging on the he used to go, these eyes don't lie. And he said, I saw you bludgeon. I go, no, Harry. And he go, these eyes, they don't lie. I know what I see. And so as I was playing first grade and so forth, he'd really he was complimentary. He was balanced, but he'd be quick to also point out, if I, had was could have been better in certain circumstances, and I had often tried to talk to Harry about faith, and he had no certain terms told me to F off. And I consider him like a dad, and he was like, for me, like
Just wouldn't take it.
And I was like another son to him, because he had a family as well. But and so one day he found a lump on his sort of I think in his chest, and he went to have an MRI, and he called me after, and he said, "Oh, I've got to. Can you meet me at Cronulla? I need to speak to you." He said, and I went and met with him, and he said to me, and there was something about him that was different. And he said to me, "I saw him," and I said, "I saw who?" He said, "I saw him on the cross." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I was going under for my MRI," and he said, "I had a vision of Jesus on the cross." And he said, "You can't tell me I didn't see it, because these eyes don't lie." And I just remember all my life he'd said, "These eyes don't lie," and he was always right. And he had a vision of Christ on the cross. This is Harry Eden, who was like one of the tough old school. He worked for Jack Gibson. Some say he was like an underworld type debt collector for Jack, who was I don't know if that's true or not, but I tell you, there used to be some games when we were junior, where the police would come and raid and take Harry away. And so he was like, Harry was into it, mate. He was like, well, he loved me, and he was just he was the kindest of man. He's the most interesting man I met, to answer your question later. But
wow,
Harry started coming to church, and then he passed on as a believer. And so, but we had argued. I mean, I'm talking. He said to me to my face, "If you ever effing talk to me that again," I'm talking like he would snap at me about it. And he was, as I said, like this was the man that used to bring fruit to my house, because we didn't have much money when we were younger, and he'd put some money. Like, he was just like, he was the best. But when it came to talking about faith, he was like ruthlessly against it, until he had that vision. And I when he said to me, he said, "You can't tell me I didn't see it," I was like, Harry, I felt like saying, "Harry, that's what I've been trying to tell you. This is real." But he said, I burst in tears when he said, "These eyes don't lie."
Yeah,
because I was like, far out, man. Like, so he had peace towards the end of he found peace with God, and that old school, like, it's just like, it's a different era. They were the hardest working players. James, you would have fit in that era, like, down to a T, mate. To when I've seen you play, like, it's just like you would have fit in that era, like, unbelievably well. But Yeah. Anyhow, that was yeah. And I speak to people all the time about it. I some people don't want to know, and that's okay. That's totally for everyone's on a journey with it.
We're going to take a quick break from the podcast to tell you about AG1, the daily foundational nutritional drink with all your needs in the one place. I like to look after my health, and AG1 takes care of that for me. No more tablets, vitamin pills, all the health nutrition I need, all in the one place. Every single morning, it's as easy. Open up the fridge, scoop of AG1 in a glass, cold water, stir it with a fork, drink it. It tastes great, and it helps me know. It gives me the peace of mind that all my nutritional needs are taken care of, all in the one drink. It really is as simple as that. And also, anybody that knows anything about health benefits knows that it comes with adding simple routines to your day. It's not about magic pills. They're not going to work. AG1 helps me be the best version of myself by having this new habit of every single morning having that drink. I know my nutritional bases are covered thanks to AG1. A lot of athletes are now taking AG1, and with 75 high quality ingredients, it's no wonder why. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/buy round. That's drinkag1.com/buy round. Check it out. Religion has been a huge part of your life and part of your journey. We are going to touch on your football career.
Yeah, sorry, man. I hope I didn't go on too long. We can always edit.
Not at all. But your journey into the entertainment world. So, yeah, we've got a bit of a background there. But it's quite interesting. You said you were on the Footy Show and then on the ABC. Talk about a contrast. But you're in the film world now.
Yeah.
And your movie, Finally Me, came out this year.
Yeah, that's right. And I've got Chasing Comets for anyone who's listening on Stan. It's been on there for a few years. But yeah, so I look, to be honest,
director.
I directed my last one. I produced and wrote and directed this one, but on the first one, I just wrote and produced.
What's the difference between a producer and a director?
Yeah,
producer.
So director is really accountable for the performance, for your performance on the screen. They're also accountable to look at a script and see how they can massage it to hit those notes that are, those beats in a film that move people or make people laugh. So they've got to have a good knowledge of screenplays, and also they need to be able to try and bring out the best in their actors and understand the tone of.
So the director is there on set, but the producer would just be they would chop it together.
Yeah, so the director's the one strictly behind the camera, and he calls cut, or sometimes a first AD, assistant director, calls the cut, but usually it's the director who sees what's happening on the screen and then goes to the actor and say, hey, can you bring it up a notch when you say this, or can I don't feel we're getting enough emotion out of you here, or I think your timing maybe, or if it's good, you just go, that was great, let's just do it again and try something different. So
so they would be like, oh, the tone of your voice was wrong there. We just need, you went up slightly.
Yeah. You try and say and you try and bring it back to the character and say, what would the character be feeling at this moment, and try not to make it personal in terms of, you're not hitting the mark. It's more like, let's talk about the character and what he would be feeling at this moment. Do you think he'd be saying it this way, or let's give us a variation and stuff like that. And I was fortunate with this film. We had a lot of experienced actors on there, so it was a great collaboration. But yeah, that's what the director does. But the producer is accountable for many things, like raising finance and the logistics of a film set, from overseeing or even getting locations and doing cast contracts. And so I went to university just across the road here at New South Wales Uni, actually, and did commerce degree.
When?
That was from 90 to 93.
Oh, while you were playing?
Yeah, while I was playing,
Wow.
yeah. So it's funny because Mark Coyne and I, who was the Dragons captain, we used to train 5 o'clock at Jubilee Oval, usually weights, and then we'd go into the city and work full time, then leave at 3 o'clock, come back to training at 4. And we were knackered, man. We were knackered for those because I was in that era that trained and played. That worked and played, but then obviously when Super League came in, it all changed. But so the producing, I really like I really like writing, and I really like directing.
Did you do it all?
I did do it all because on the independent films, sometimes you don't have the budget to bring on, so you've got to do it, and you're a bit of a one man band in a sense until you can earn the right to do bigger things. And when you earn the right to do bigger things with bigger budgets, then you can. And there's always bigger problems with bigger budgets. Don't get me wrong, but at least
More
I could
money,
potentially.
what's that song? More money, more problems.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because the reason I was asking about what a producer does, because I've still got no idea what Charlie does. He's our producer.
Yeah, Charlie.
And
Well, that makes two of us.
You listed all those things, and I'm like, that's not applicable. That's not applicable. That's not applicable. So,
yeah, Charlie.
the mystery continues. So,
he's a handsome young guy, though, isn't he? Wow. He no, debatable.
Well, I don't know.
Single?
Depend. No, he's not. He's not single. Hey, do you know he might be handsome. Guess what?
What?
Took 4 days off for his 28th birthday.
For what?
His 28th birthday.
He's not 28.
He is. He's 28, and he just turned 28. And
you're 28 and you're working here, man. You got to really think about the next phase. You got to kick into another level. No offense.
No, he seriously took 4 days off. For
Really?
his birthday, yeah. He's a bit of a Sydney it girl.
That's
what I've. I've put him in that box now. Sydney it girl. Look at me. Oh, I'm going to take photos. I've got all the photos from Instagram. Put them up. Tagged here. Birthday meal out. All that sort of jazz. So that's my idea of
that's
a producer.
What we're dealing with.
These producers just
Because just being honest, all he did was text me, "Can you come on?" And then wrote me these questions, which we haven't used any of them. So it's really you're carrying this show, James, and I hope you're not paying him. That's all I want to. This is experience for him. Please tell me it's work experience for him. What's he getting paid?
Well, we'll not get into that. So I actually said to him, make sure you mention to Jason Stevens about the 4 things we got to do at the end, and he goes, "Well, I've sent him the rundown." I was like, yeah, but you need to highlight that because that's important, because you need to know about those 4 things at the end, because there's a bit of pre-planning that goes into that. He goes, well, I've sent him the message. I said, yeah, but can you go back again and say the 4 things? He's like, well, he's responded with a thumbs up
because that was
the message.
I was like, 12 o'clock last night.
I was like,
I got a text,
yeah,
and he's like. And he sends me this text, "Hey man, how you doing?" It's like 12 o'clock at night, mate. He said he was going to send the info Monday. I'm thinking, is this still on? Yeah. And then I get a text at 12 o'clock at night, and it's just like, "Hey man, how you doing?" with a picture of himself in a cartoon. It's weird, man.
Did you really?
He's got an old emoji of himself.
Oh my goodness me!
It's either him or a Backstreet Boy or something like that.
Oh my goodness me! Mate, we could be so much better. Mate, the whole movie side of things. Did you do any acting at all?
I went to NIDA and did a 6-week course there.
Is that all you need to do to become an actor? 6-week course?
No.
I suppose it's who you know as well, though.
Well, I did several courses after it, but I never really saw myself as an actor, but I wanted to learn a bit about the process, because it always helps if you're directing and producing and you understand a bit about that journey. It helps you sort of connect a little more. But yeah, I never really saw myself too much in front of the screen. But with TV presenting was a different kettle of fish. Like that was interviewing, much like yourself. the first interview that I ever did, they literally rang me the day before and said, "Hey, can you interview The Rock tomorrow?" I was like, "Yeah." All right. They go, "You know what you got to ask him?" I go, "Yeah." So no, I just took the opportunity. You know what I mean? And that was awesome. That was supposed to go for like, I think it was like 8 minutes. They give you a junket, and the PR person, who was his wife actually, kept coming in and saying, "Hey, we got to go," and he kept saying, "No, I'm enjoying this." So it lasted about half an hour.
Oh, good.
And we had a really, really good chat about his movie Walking Tall. I think it was back in the day. So he was just breaking out into this action sort of star. But yeah, so I learned on the job, and a lot of actors too. A lot of them do go to courses, and there's great merit in doing that. But there are some that just like they take an opportunity, and I don't know if it's true, but I did hear a story about Sam Worthington and about him going to an audition with his then girlfriend, and she didn't get it, but the casting agent saw him and said, "Do you want to have audition? You've got a great look and all that." And he got the gig, and so sometimes there's a natural talent there that just needs to be a little worked on. But do you ever see yourself I can see you as in that hard man type role? Like, well, I'll be thinking of you, mate.
Oh, maybe a James Bond villain.
Speaking of a James Bond, I was just listening to this podcast with Idris Elba, and I think that he was talking about him being the next James, but I don't think he is going to be the next James. No, I don't think so.
See, I'd do something like, "Come, Mr. Bond. You derive just as much pleasure from killing as I do."
Well, let me just tell you, you're better than George Burgess. So I'm joking.
I'll take that. No, I watch a show.
George is good. George is good.
He is good. We had him on the show. Actually.
He's good.
Outstanding. I watch a show called The Trip in the UK with Rob Brydon and Steve Coogan. And
so good.
They are amazing. Like some of the things they do, but like they're into each other about their acting skills. And I've picked up all things like, not that I always quote that.
Yes.
It's such an amazing show.
There's a cameo coming for you, man. I watched The Office again last night. I watched it again. My wife came into the room and she saw me crying like with laughter.
How good is it?
You know what I mean? The Ricky Gervais and Steve Merchant.
Genius.
Genius. That's the only word that you could ever. Crying with laughter. And I've watched this 8-10 times this series easily.
Me too.
Easily.
There's always something
and I'm still crying with laughter over it. And I just, it's inspiring to know that he started his career later.
Yeah.
It's just, he's really. I've never watched anything in my life, even though I'm a big Seinfeld fan, but I've just never laughed as hard than anything than The Office.
The Office is without a doubt like the best show ever made. Bar none in my opinion.
I think so too. Like, did you watch the American one? Because I did. I couldn't watch it.
I did. I think after they stopped replicating series 1 and series 2, they went off. And you got a bit of love for the characters. Like Michael Scott is actually it's different. It's different, but it's I don't mind a little bit of American Office. But back to the Trip, they talk about this like scene about being like playing like a costume drama, and he goes talk about like that dead look in your eyes because you've seen so many horrors. He'd say something like, "Gentlemen to bed, for we leave at first light."
Are you doing Arnold Schwarzenegger?
"And tomorrow we battle.
No.
We may lose our lives, but remember this: death but be a moment. Cowardice is a lifetime of affliction." And they're like, "Oh yeah,
that's nice. That was a good delay.
Costume drama. That's me.
Oh yeah,
dead look.
Yeah, that fight. Yeah. I like it.
All from The Trip. Another great show.
I need to watch it. That was very good delivery, by the way.
Thank you.
if the podcast doesn't work out, thanks to Charlie, it won't be on your back.
It won't be on my. It'll be all Charlie's downhill. Costume dramas, here we come. I'm an out of work actor, guys. How do you find dealing with the actors? Are they and actresses? Are they?
My experience has been pretty good actually. But you sort of. I think relationally, I'm fairly good with people. So that kind of helps. But no, I haven't encountered like major A-list sort of stars. I think it's a different. Some of my friends who are directors who do delve in that space, there are always different challenges with those type of people. Some, not all the time, but a lot of the time, there's a lot that goes with that. But I guess they've earned the right to sort of to do things their way. I guess, but I'm excited to see what the next sort of little bit of time holds.
Where is the whole film directing, producing, casting? Where's it going for you? Where do you envisage it? Being?
I've got about 10 projects actually. I've just been successful with some funding for another project.
For a film?
For a TV series. But I've got a true story for film. The unit called Z Unit, who were a derivative of the English Special Ops, SOE, I think they were. They were the first commandos of our war history. So I've got a true story about them that I'm trying to raise funds for. The ugly side of filmmaking is financing, and I've learned a lot about how to structure finance, and which is why my accounting background has come into great use. But because you do memorandums and stuff like that, and they're thick documents which you got to understand about what an investor will get and so forth. But that's the side. It's kind of like not the ugly side, but it's just like, finance is the big thing because money solves a lot of problems. I believe at the right time everything will come to pass. But I've got a true dog story about an Oscar.
A true dog story.
Yeah, but Oscar's Last Blizzard. It's called. I optioned an article about a husky called Oscar, who was a bit of a polar legend, and so I've just got so many sort of scripts and so many projects. I think about 10 to 12 actually. So
have you written these scripts?
I've written them. I've written them, but now with Oscar's Last Blizzard, I've just had a good meeting with a very prolific writer who I'd like him to write the script, and that seems to be moving forward because I'd like to be able to do more and sort of upscale the business, my company, and the way you do that is you bring on people who are better than you, and with all your projects you sort of try and align with guys that are ahead of the game. So. And now because I've done 2 films which have been well received, you sort of get the doors not shut to present stuff to them, which is pretty cool. But it's taken a long time, James. Like honestly, in 2006 I started screenwriting, and I've been pursuing it relentlessly. So we're in 2023, and it's like, there were many years of like. Yeah, and I'm still not where I want to be, but I'm not where I used to be, which is great. But
did you have another job as well?
Bits and pieces. I did Fox Sports a little bit, but I didn't enjoy it. And it's funny, I did it for a year, and then I think they knew that I wasn't into it, and they weren't into me, and no one rang me for the start. I remember thinking a week out from the following year, am I on this year? And I was like. They haven't rang, and I go, I guess not.
Yeah.
I was never fired, but I was never.
Yeah.
So I did a bit of that. My wife and I did this show, Sydney Weekender, for 10 years on Channel 7.
Oh, yeah. So you still
had pieces.
You still had an income stream. You
not much of an income stream, no, not much of an income stream at all. I've sort of I'd saved well with footy, and to be honest with you, you sort of dug into a fair bit of that sort of savings, and yeah, like I think paid a decent price to be able to make headway now in this industry, because I think there's been, oh man, I don't think I've made, since I've retired, 2005 I retired with 2023, I wouldn't have made the money over that span of years than I did in 1 year of footy.
Seriously?
Yeah. I'm serious. I was on the Matty John show for 1 year. That was in 2010. I did Dancing with the Stars. But even those years, it's not the money's not like, it's not. Yeah, you can't live off it. You've got to have other things going.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not crying poor or anything like that. Like I'm not. I chose this path, and I'm grateful I pushed through many sort of seasons of like nothing and doors being shut. And I remember I had a pretty high profile director say to me, I think you need to move on from this. It's not going to happen. And I just kept pushing through. And it's kind of all the stuff that footy teaches you about, like, a coach maybe doesn't like it, doesn't see it, just doesn't see it in you. So you're going to let that person dictate your future, or you're just going to dig your heels. And I'm not saying don't have a sense of reality, but I did know I could write, and I've worked hard enough on my craft to get it to a good place. But, movies are so subjective. You and I could watch the same movie and walk out and you liked it and I didn't like it, or vice versa, isn't it? It's subjective, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Someone could read your script and go, that's garbage. Another person could read it and say, I really like this, what I mean? It's happened so much. When you hear so many stories of films not getting up, like, and the journey to get up. There's this great, I don't know if you've got Netflix, but there's a great series called Movies That Made Us. And they really talk about the journey of so many films that were never going to get green lit. Like, I'll give you an example, like Back to the Future. The head of the studio wrote to Spielberg and said, don't get the name, like, I'd rather it's Spaceman from Pluto. That's the name. And I'm like, and Spielberg said to his associate, the associate said to him, is he kidding? He goes, no, he's not kidding. He goes, let me handle it. So he wrote back to the head of the studio and said, we saw your note on the change of the name. We laughed hysterically. Keep the jokes coming. And it was like, he never heard from him again. He played it so well, as if it was it was genius the way he handled it. But everyone's got an opinion, Like, I couldn't imagine that film Back to the Future
you can't.
without that name. Spaceman from Pluto.
Didn't they have to reshoot it as well from
5
the beginning
weeks.
Because
Michael J. Fox.
Michael J. Fox.
They wouldn't cast him, and Spielberg wanted him, and they put in another actor. They had to go back over it, didn't they? 5 weeks of shooting. Unbelievable what they, So it's just, I've learnt the experts can be wrong. You know what I mean? And so, look, even with footy, I remember, like, I didn't get picked for a while with the Aussie teams. And I remember word got back to me about the head coach, because some of the selectors reached out to me and said, look, he's not a fan. And he said, he thinks you're soft and he doesn't want to pick you. And so, there was one test series that front rowers just kept falling out through injury, and I eventually got picked in the team, but sat on the bench for most of the games. And in the last game against New Zealand, I didn't get picked for the team. And so that morning of the game, we're over in New Zealand. They used to call you obviously we're the Kangaroos, but they if you weren't in the team, they called you something. Anyhow, we got flogged. Billy Johnson, I don't know if you remember him, he flogged us because I said, tomorrow we're on holidays and, that's our off season. So I just flogged myself. At 1 o'clock, I got a call that Rodney Howe's his knee had just blown up like a balloon. So I went from not being in the team to starting in the test match. And I just flogged myself in the morning. And I came out and had a massive game against New Zealand. And the coach came to me after it and he said, "Hey, just want to let you know, you proved me wrong," and shook my hand. And that meant a lot. Do you know what I mean? It meant a lot. And that's what I love about footy. You know, there's so much that you can take with you to prepare for life after, like overcoming people's perceptions of you, or the labels, or just trying to, sometimes you don't get the opportunity to prove someone wrong, but every now and then you do.
So with the film industry, where do you see you and your company being in 10 years' time, or what's some long-term goals that you have that you'd like to see come to fruition?
I'd really like to. The ones that I have that I think that are highly commercial. And there's one that I've written called Cupid, and it's based on the angel of love becoming cynical with mankind. So it's a romantic comedy, and every time he sets up, people on Earth, they just, they sort of don't really care, and they move on, and they cheat, and they do all this and that, and he pours his heart into setting them up, and he's had enough, because he goes, this is costing me, I'm crying over there. I'm crying while they're just moved on to another. So he starts just setting up anyone and everyone and just making a mockery of mankind and their relationships, and he gets called up back to heaven, and they say, we can't have a Cupid that's cynical, and so it's the story of him playing for one more opportunity, because he thinks the problem's them, not him. And so they send him to Earth to help this one girl who's also cynical about love. They sort of challenge him. They say, if you can help her believe again, you'll redeem yourself. And in doing so, he actually falls in love with her. I'm not going to tell you the rest of it, because he's an angel and he has to return. But I've got a fair few sort of. I think that's a very commercial sort of film that'll find its mark. We could be here in a few years' time, James, saying, "Remember, I told you about that one," and it's going to go well. And I truly believe there's a lot of sort of stories that I have that are commercial, and they'll find its way. But it's a relentless pursuit, and it
sounds very consuming as well.
It is. You're in it full time, like 6 days a week, but not getting paid as if it's 6 days a week. But at the end of the day, like you've got to, I don't want to come to the end of my and go, I didn't give it the all, I didn't give it a shot, and I know, I just feel like things are starting to turn, you know what I mean? So in 10 years, I'd like a production company that's doing multiple TV shows, films, and I guess here and abroad. That's what I'd like.
Is Hollywood the goal?
Yeah, because the film I did, that Finally Me one, I did it in American accents, and I filmed it here. But because all the actors that I got, they're all with great agencies, and they're auditioning all the time for stuff overseas. So their accents are really good. And the sales agent that took it on in the States, they take on a lot of sort of profile films, and one of the big stamps of approval on the film for me was that they. Even though you didn't make the launch because you were busy, that's fine. He asked for an appearance fee. Charlie, was that you?
That is not true, by the way.
But what one of the big stamps of approval was that, see, to get a good sales agent that likes your film, they will begin now selling it into the North American market, and they actually did a Zoom with me, and it was like at 3:00 in the morning, and I said, I'll take it because they're a big company. And when they could tell it was dark, and they go, where are you? And I was like, I'm in a place called Cronulla, in Sydney. And they were like, oh, you filmed this film in Sydney, in Australia? And they were like, I was like, yeah. I said, I thought you knew. And they said, no, we thought you filmed it in America. So that was great for me, because the accents passed, and the feel about it was. So they'll take it to market very shortly, and let's see how it goes. They feel pretty strongly about it, that it's gonna find its mark, because it's kind of like Bring It On, which is a cheerleading film, meets Big Fat Greek Wedding, because it's about a Greek girl who's plus size, and the dad wants her. she wants to cheerlead, but the dad wants her to take over the souvlaki store, and so it's quite funny. I'm going to send you a link that you'll get to watch it. I should have sent it to you. Charlie, you're not doing your work, mate. I would have sent him. He would have watched it last night. We would have been plugging the film.
Exactly. I know, but Charlie's just
Charlie
busy checking his socials.
He's checking his hair and his socials.
Disgrace. He's probably planning his next birthday, his 29th. All planning, booking the dance floor out or something like that. Yeah. And then, oh God, wait till he turns 30. Jesus Christ, it'll be a birthday month.
Oh my goodness.
Mate, onto your footballing career. Or unless you want to keep going.
No. I saw you yawning. That was enough for me. It's fine. Get him a coffee,
mate,
or
no, you know what it is. It's cold in here, and when you're cold, you yawn.
Is that right? Wear a jumper or something.
Well, I've got to wear the buy-around T-shirt. And Charlie, we had the heating on before. We had a Zoom meeting, so we had the heating on, and Charlie was like, "I'm a bit hot." It's like, well, mate, obviously it's
He's
all
very
about
high maintenance. I'd like to meet his girlfriend if there is such a thing that he does. Is that real?
I think so.
It is real.
Well,
She's never come in
I've
here.
met her. So I've met her. So unless he was paying an actor or an actress, sorry, paying an actress, not paying.
Poor Charlie, mate. I actually like the kid.
He's all right. He's all right, mate. Football career. You mentioned the grand final.
93.
You break your thumb.
Yeah, second tackle of the match.
Far out, man.
Literally meeting Tina Turner 5 minutes beforehand. And I'd had a poor game the week before against the Dogs. And actually, I was close to getting dropped for the grand final. But I think we went with, I had a poor game. I remember on the bus to the game, Anthony Mundine and I, we were just having a laugh. I don't know why, but everyone else was really serious. But we were just laughing, and then I didn't have a great game, and I think Brian Smith was a bit like you were off. You weren't focused, and but I didn't have a good game. But I was ready for that 93 one. And we were favourites going into it actually because. But, second tackle, the brick with eyes, they call him Lazo. We picked him up and drove him back. And I just remember limping after it. I don't know why I was limping. I don't know why. I looked at my thumb and I saw half of it was off its bone and I started limping for a reason. And I remember and then my Mark Coyne looked at me and said, because then I got on my knees and I'm like, oh, this is over. And Mark Coyne said, get up, you fat. I'm not going to say what he said. And I just remember going, and then they stopped the game and we went to Greg McCallum, I think was the ref, and he looked at it and he went like that. And so I pretty much had to go and have microsurgery straight away because we went to Martin Raftery, who was a club doctor, looked at it and it was because of compound, it came through the skin and there was just no way I could play on. But I was spewing because obviously, like that. It was the funny thing was that I had the surgery straight away before the game was over, and
really?
Yeah,
you were in surgery.
I had surgery very quickly. They said you're in danger of losing your thumb. It was that bad. It was that bad. It was the whole thing had come off, and for infection and stuff like that. And so, I remember waking up and I was dazed, and my brother came with me in the ambulance. I remember they gave me the happy gas and I was trying to hit on the nurse because I wasn't a Christian. I was asking for a number. I'm like, what am I doing? I was just out of it in terms of just like, you're literally playing and then 5 minutes later you're in an ambulance. It was just like on the way to hospital just up the road here. And when I woke up out of the operation, I remember seeing Brad Mackay get the Clive Churchill, and I remember he got up and he thanked God and he made a pact with God. He said, if I get the Clive Churchill, I'm going to mention you, and he told me that later. And I remember thinking, we won. Did we win? I was thinking, did we win? and he was only the second player ever to get the award from. I think Bradley Clyde was the other one in a losing side to win the Clive Churchill. So it was a miserable. I remember Phil Blake. Do you remember Phil Blake at all? He was a Manly. He played at Saints in that grand final. He was a gun. He was one of the. I think he coaches rugby union now, but he was one of those. He won the grand final. I think with. Did he win a grand final? I can't remember. With Manly, they lost one, and he came and saw me in the hospital after it, and he said, "I said, don't worry, they'll be next year." And he goes, "Look, you don't know that." He goes, "Because when he was young, he was in a grand final, and he'd never won it, and then he only got his chance later in his life to be in the second one. So, and then he lost that one as well. So I was just naive. I was 21, thinking, I'll play next year grand final. I'm sure, But yeah, so it was just a crap day, mate. It was a crap day. And Brisbane, they hammered us like Saints can't play, and it was really, really disappointing day.
Yeah, I bet, mate, and doing that to your thumb, that's not what runs through your mind for that week before, is it? No,
that's right. The week before it, we're at the grand final breakfast. I always had a flair for entertainment because they had the grand final breakfast and they had Peter Andre singing.
Oh yeah, really?
Which is not a great.
You're joking. In 2003?
No, 1993.
Oh, 1993.
They had Peter Andre, and I was a fan, and so they're calling up Saints and Brisbane on the grand final breakfast, and they go, "Where's Steve-O?" And I'm backstage meeting Peter Andre because his manager was a Saints supporter. Tony Grace, his name is. He's the head. He's CEO of the Harbour Agency. He's still there. And we're best mates till this day. And here I am talking to Peter Andre, who has no idea about footy, and because we've got Greek background, both of us. So we, I asked him for the numbers of any of his backup dancers and all that, and he thought I was kidding. And I was like, I'm not kidding. I'd like the numbers of those girls. But I found out later he was trying with one of them, so that's why he was a bit guarded with it. You know what I mean? So that was an interesting week, being at the grand final and having to rush up on stage because I'm backstage meeting Peter Andre. So I guess there was always an inkling for entertainment and so forth back in those days. But yeah, it was a good week. But it was like we stayed at this hotel at Coogee, and honestly, that night it was just terrible because all week we were there and there was rowdy people at night. Like the night before the grand final, there were people in the pool till 1 o'clock on the piss, drinking, shouting, and I'm like, I can't sleep. And got the grand final the next day. It was just, it wasn't a great preparation. I'll be honest with you, but everything went wrong. Mark Hoyne tore his quad in that first 10 minutes, and he was a gun. He was a gun player, Mark Hoyne. I'll tell you, he was. So it just all went wrong.
Yeah, sometimes when the stars, they just don't align for you.
Yeah, I know.
You need that to happen.
Did you play one or two?
Grand finals.
I know overseas you played 1-1. That was a fairy tale.
Yeah,
but
I played
two overseas?
Two over here that lost. Back home, won one in 06, then we lost 5 in a row.
5 in a row?
Yeah.
That last one was...
Oh, man,
the way that happened was
insane.
Best script of it. You
mate,
couldn't write a better script.
Mate, if you wrote that script and handed it in, they'd go...
You know what? The only one I can compare that to is with Paul Green winning
the Cowboys.
The Cowboys.
Yeah.
That's still the greatest grand final I've ever seen.
Oh, mate. What?
You couldn't...
No, you couldn't script it.
You know, I texted him that year. I texted him that year because I was pretty close with Paul, and they'd lost. The Sharks hammered him at Shark Park. I said, hey, don't worry, Paul. I kept the text. I said, don't worry, this is going to be a special year for you. I don't know why I texted it. They were nowhere near looking like grand finalists, and the Sharks just hammered them. And I just said, don't worry, this is going to be a special year for you. And when they won, you could not, you just couldn't have, scripted the twists and turns,
Mate,
like your one.
Even Thurston when he hit the post.
You just go, it was just, that's why rugby league, man. It's the greatest game of all.
That for me, that's a moment in that game that doesn't get spoken about enough. Thurston's got the chance to win the game,
win it,
and he hits the post. It's like
I
it's
know.
the biggest like.
I remember just like. I know. I mean, rugby league, man. It is the greatest. It is the greatest game of all. But
I agree. I love what sport does. Like, there's so many other great sporting stories out there.
There are,
that just captivate you. But it's in a modern world of what I believe is scripted reality TV.
Yes,
rugby league is the genuine, and sport is real.
It is
real.
The thing is, I don't know.
It's real reality TV because you don't know what's going to happen.
You don't know. Yeah. The thing is, James, I when I was playing, I didn't watch a heap of it, and sometimes I didn't know who I was playing against. I watch so much of it now. I watch every game. I know probably more now about players, but when I was playing, I don't know why. I just I didn't watch every. I just struggled always talking about it. It was quite consuming. Do you know what I mean? And I didn't watch. I probably would have been a better player if I actually knew who I was playing against, and But I didn't. Maybe it was just my way of coping with the pressure of it, because the pressure was like. Remember, Matt Rogers came to me like before a semi-final, and he looked at me and he said, "Why do we play this game?" Because the pressure on us to win our first grand final with the Sharks was just like, and. That just so much credit to Paul Gallen and their team for winning, But it was. I felt that pressure. You know what I mean? I really did. Did you handle pressure well?
At different points, yes and no. I think I was attracted to the pressure and the chaos.
Well, yeah, really,
and the uncertainty. Yeah, a big part of me enjoyed that. The uncontrollable nature of sport and the unscripted it. We kick off, we've got a plan, but literally it's gonna turn it, and the variables you can't control in terms of opposition, referee, weather, or
what did Mike Tyson say? Everyone's got a plan
until they get punched in the face. Yeah,
and I was at that grand final because I had a great affinity for South Sydney because of Harry and Bob McCarthy. Trained me when I was younger. When he rang the bell that day, it was like the closest you'll ever see to a church service. There were South fans putting their hands on their heart, singing, their anthem before the game would start. I was there watching. I took a corporate gig to watch that game because I said this is going to be And when you laid out Sam Burgess from that, I thought. Dogs are in here. They're in with a massive. But I tell you, mate, you must have walked off that field just with nothing left.
Yeah, it was South Sea.
It was South
Sea. But yeah, look, I.
But bro, you took out. I think one of the there's in terms of imports, there's yourself, Sam, and I got to play with Martin Fire, but he was on the wing. And if you think Charlie was a pretty boy.
Where did you play with the Fire at?
Saints. Martin Fire. Came to St. George.
I didn't know he played for Saints. I thought he played for someone else.
No. He came here to the Dragons. Yeah. Yeah. Chariots, mate. He was like a show. He was great. He was great.
Yeah.
But you and who was the front row? The guy that
Morley.
came to East Morley. Yeah. You would be the.
He was tough.
Tough.
He was tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Scary man.
I know. I loved running at him. It's funny how I loved running at him because I just was like, I never feared him. There's a fair few players I just never feared, like Webke and Petro. I loved running. I just wouldn't I don't know. I had this thing that I just felt that I wanted to show that I could just get over him. You know what I mean? And I loved. But there were guys like Trevor Gilmeister. Do you know Trevor Gilmeister?
Yes, I do,
mate. And he would just knock you in half. And he was nothing of him, really. I mean, he wasn't...
It's funny that, isn't it?
And he would just knock you in half. And I wouldn't be running at him. I'd be trying to avoid running at him because he'd launch at your guts and just wind you. And I remember just getting up going...
But mate, going back to that, the stuff with the pressure, it's funny how, you get consumed and it's all you know, and you just
Yeah.
you
Oh.
even when I think back and think like, oh, when people say, do you miss it? And you're like, oh, you know what? Sometimes you just you miss losing because it gives you something you care so much about it. And you're like, oh, I need to go back to work and work on myself, the team, the middle, the edge, whatever it may be. It's a funny way to live, but it was great.
Yeah, so you were like, I think more invested than me. If I'm being totally honest, I kind of feel like because I had other things during the week, like with the Footy Show, I had a contract with them. I had I had a lot of church stuff and so forth. Sometimes I think I really should have given a lot more focus to improving myself as a footballer. But whenever we'd sit down, I struggled watching myself because I hated watching myself on, which you got to push through, because I've learnt that now in films, like, and a lot of directors feel this way, like they watch their first and they're like, what have I done? Like, it's so hard to watch this crap that I've just, that I've just filmed. But the only way you get through is to self-critique it and to be open to feedback. And I wasn't very good with that.
Really?
No,
in your
I wasn't.
Football career, negative feedback, positive
I
feedback?
wasn't good at receiving it. I wasn't. I was like, the rejection of it. I was like,
did you get confrontational, or you just?
I just didn't want to hear it, and just was like, and wouldn't really examine my game and go, how can I get better? And I think I would have been a better player. 100% I would have been a better player.
Would you change it?
Yeah, I would have changed it. Yeah, if I was mature enough.
But if you could go back now, you'd say, "Oh, I'm gonna."
Yeah, I would. I'd want the feedback.
Have more analysis of my performances.
Yeah, because I was very I remember Jasper. Peter Gentle was the assistant coach. And he was one of the years he was there. He was so good. He was so good, and he had such a great way with people. And we'd go through. That was at the days where you started to get your own personalised video of your effort, and I'd honestly be like struggling to watch because I didn't like watching myself. I didn't like the fact that I was a bit overweight. And I just struggled to watch myself. But if I would have pushed through that pain, I would have learnt to welcome feedback.
Did any coaches try and push you into that?
Yeah, no, not really, not really. No, they didn't. No, no, they didn't. Yeah,
but,
I don't know.
What about would you feature in the team video? What would you? I'm assuming that was it. Say. Review of the game and Jason Stevens is involved in something negative and the coach is reviewing that and and plays it in front of everyone. So
with Johnny Lang, we'd have to watch the whole game again.
Oh really?
Yeah, the whole
game for review.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So then they changed it later where you'd only
you cut up.
You cut up. Yeah. That was always torture. Watching the important bits. That was always torture. Like. Watching the, I hated watching myself.
Did he watch the whole game? He'd
and
stop,
pause
what's happened?
Yeah.
It's a long video session.
And Langy was great. He was a great coach and a great man. But it was a long video, so you'd walk out of there just like some guys fell asleep. I remember Nathan Long always used to fall asleep. He was he just couldn't help it.
Mate, I've seen the long video sessions, it's natural. Mate, you can only concentrate for I think 15 minutes or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
And you're just watching a video and you're like...
Yeah.
And you're watching the game back. You know what... It's like watching a movie, you know the ending.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Spoiler alert, I know when they score and when they don't.
That's right, yeah, I know. So sometimes you'd fast forward the menial sort of bits, but what was always bad was when he'd pause it and I was getting up to play the ball and my shirt had come up and my guts were just hanging over my shoulder. I was just so embarrassed because I always carried a belly, for most of it. But anyhow.
Hey, mate, on your move from the Dragons to the Sharks, that was in the Super League War.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Did you get much pushback from that?
From the Dragons fans or
fans in general?
Well, Gordon, myself, and Brownie were going to sit out a year.
Well,
and
Gordon did.
So Brownie and I sat out the first maybe 8 games.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. And then because I had signed under Brian Smith, and it was always like now you can write that into your contract that if he goes, you go. But I was only there for him because he was great with me. And then when they changed sort of coach, and then it was a bit of a mess, that whole Super League sort of situation. We had to go to court, and we were trying to get out of our Saints sort of deal, and then that wasn't going to happen. So it was like, you're going to sit out the season? And I didn't want to sit out the season, but I ended up playing a fair bit of that in reserve grade that year because they knew I was going. But then I got called back in when the semi-finals were on, but I did my knee the week before the grand final. So Nathan Brown was supposed to give me a dummy to me and hit someone behind me, but he gave me the ball and I just went like that, and I started, and that was it, gone. So I missed the 96 grand final against Manly. I would have had, so it was. I still remember getting surgery, and the grand final the night before, I was in a lot of pain, and I couldn't get up, and so the hospital gives you a little thing to wee in. And this is the night before the grand final. I'm weeing in this thing, and then as I go to put it down, I drop it on myself, and I'm full of piss, and just started. I'd actually become a Christian, pretty much that year, and it was the worst footballing year of my life. And I just remember thinking, what's going on here? Like, because I missed the grand final, had a knee reconstruction, and the night before it, I'm covered with piss.
Jeez.
It was one of the. So I didn't have much luck with grand finals, but I got a little bit of pushback from Saints fans and all that, and I could understand that because I was a junior, and also, I didn't leave on the best of terms. The club are great, I've got to say, in terms of welcoming me back. Now, and obviously they've got their challenges, but they've been really good.
How was that change with Super League? Like, a lot of money came in to the game. Like,
yeah.
Did you notice the change almost instantly?
Massive change.
Like, are we talking life changing money?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, absolutely. Like it was. I was fortunate enough to be wanted by several clubs. So, mate, it was, you went from, in some cases it quadrupled your income. And so we were just for it because we sort of saw I always thought to myself, we were talking a bit before, it was like, where's the money going here? I'm sure there's money being made. Where's it going? And why aren't the players sort of get it? I remember speaking to Laurie Daly, and he was saying to me, he goes, I've been playing for so long, and where's this going? Where's this money going?
Yeah, there's money coming into the game.
There's money coming into the game, yeah. So I was glad, even though it hurt the game. There are still people I know to this day who aren't supporters of league because of what happened in Super League. But I think most have come back. But it had to happen. I think something had to happen to shift it to the level that players could do it full time.
Yeah,
and make some decent money. And you're never going to make that silly money where you're set for the rest of your life. It's just rugby league's just not a big enough game. But at least it can give you a really good head start. That's if I played 14 seasons. How many years did you play, James?
16.
16.
Or 17 maybe.
So we're in that minority that play that long. You know what I mean? Because most players don't make an income out of it long term, and they don't.
There's no way at the end of any football career that people can just go, I'm set for life.
I'm set for life, yeah.
And I don't think anyone would want to be either.
Well,
like it's not. I don't think that's a particularly good thing to have a 35-year-old or whatever.
But so for me, it wouldn't remove the drive of doing something else.
Yeah.
If I did have that kind of security financially, I'd still want to push it because I'm just driven that way. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Most athletes are.
Yes, they are.
Want something to go into.
Yeah,
so.
that's right. Did you miss out on that? So, were you coming through? You were young.
No, I was sat on the wall cheering you on. I was 97. Right. I was like 11, 12.
Yeah, that's right.
So I remember being there watching Cronulla play St Helens because they brought in that World Club Challenge as well.
That's right. We went over there. Yeah, it was good. No, all good, big man.
Sorry, mate.
No, not at all. I'm boring myself, I'll be honest.
No, I'm just thinking.
Imagine if we were talking about Charlie's life story.
And some of the things I look for in front row is rivalries. I was reading a little bit about your rivalry with Robbie Kearns, a bit back and forth in the press. I think it.
Well, Kearnsy was a Cronulla junior, and I was a Saints junior, so he was a couple of years older than me. He actually played against my brother in the juniors, but I was sort of when Super League happened, they sort of wanted me at Cronulla, and they sort of moved him on. So there was always that. But we were good mates when we were playing for New South Wales and Australia. And he actually came over the other week and, gave him a big hug. And we really, he's such a great guy. And I still remember in Origin, I used to walk around the room naked. I don't know what was wrong with me, but he used to say to me, Steve, you got a great body if you just get rid of your guts. I don't know how to get rid of him. But, we had that rivalry. I think I broke his nose once accidentally and got suspended for it. But, the thing is, when I did break his nose, it actually gave me a massive bruise on my left arm, which I still have till this day, and no one ever asks how that is. But they're all they're all concerned about it. Oh, Robbie's broken his nose. Well, what about my arm?
Yeah, poor arm. Yeah, because it's actually quite different. I actually read an article where you were both like verbals in the press.
And he hammered me in the press.
Didn't you say something about Cameron?
No. What happened was there was this photo of Cameron Smith, which I've still got, of him around my neck, doing the old, the old. and I'd given a wedgie to one of their players, I'm sure, to deserve that. But they were really going. They were getting silly with the choke and stuff. Like there was like once I was close to like passing out. They really got a good hold of your neck. And so after that, he Robbie Kearns called me a grub and there was a back page of the paper and all that. So like they were in the wrong. It was after that game in Melbourne that actually the spotlight got on Melbourne in terms of what they were doing so I'm glad I made a fuss of it. But at the same time, I was given some atomic wedgies, which I don't know what I was thinking. I was watching too much Simpsons and just I don't know what I was thinking. But yeah, it got quite nasty, in the papers, and the whole Melbourne side wanted to bash me, but I loved playing Melbourne, I got to say. I got offered to go to Melbourne when I retired, which was a huge, because I was a big Craig Bellamy fan.
How come you never went?
I had done my shoulder, and I needed a reco, and I also got offered by Tony Smith in England. I think it was for Leeds. Yeah, he rang me, and I had, and Cronulla wanted me to keep playing as well, but man, I'm finished. You know what I mean? I just had had enough. You know what I mean? I just thought that's enough. You know what I mean? But if I played one more year, I could have funded one of my films, I'll be honest with you. But anyhow, it's another story.
Mate, you're doing all right though. Like with
Yeah.
I know where you live.
I know,
Like-
but the house, you see, it's falling apart. You know it's falling apart. You know, a piece, you know, this is honest to goodness, the other day, because we've got floorboards, I think when
Like most people.
no, because but we've got these old, because it's one of the oldest houses there, and they're old ones. So there's little holes coming through the through, and this weed came through, and overnight grew, pushed through to be 1/2 meter, and in the morning, my 4-year-old Presley came running into me and said, "Daddy, there's a plant growing in the house." I was like, "What are you talking about?" I went in the kitchen and it come through. Oh, it was so funny, mate. We got honestly, it's literally falling down. But I got such a great spot. I am not complaining.
No,
But the house, it is, I need one of these films to kick off so I can do some renos.
knockdown rebuild. Yeah, mate.
You'll know if I've kicked into the next level if you walk past and we're building. You know,
Mate, you must get people knocking on all the time trying to buy it.
I do, yeah. I get people asking.
Do you get any silly offers?
No, but they all say, "Oh, if you're open for a reasonable offer." No one's open for a reasonable offer.
Yeah. What a stupid question. Yeah.
Because we want to be reasonable about it. I go, no, I don't want to be reasonable about it.
Yeah. I want to be the opposite. I want to be really obnoxious. Yeah.
I say to him, "I'm born again. I'm not born yesterday, mate."
Yeah.
I say,
Yeah. Oh, good. Mate, with that Robbie Kearns rivalry, were you in the Origin camp when he had the infamous?
I was right behind him with Laurie Daly.
So was that your first Origin?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Were you drinking at the time? Or
No.
Were you?
No, I wasn't drinking. Yeah. That was
because
actually me and Laurie got off the horse to stay with him because he was convulsing.
Was that not the first Origin where was Wayne Pearce taking over, and then it was a bit of a non-drinking?
Yeah, that's right. I can't even remember if there was any drinking. I actually can't remember. There was team bonding, but I just can't remember if there was drinking. But
anyway,
we weren't drinking on the horse.
You've gone horse riding. You've gone, and you were just behind him, and
me and Laurie Daly were just behind him, and when he fell. And he was actually convulsing on the floor, so we were freaked actually. So, but thankfully it all worked out. But it was a pretty traumatic thing for Robbie, and even me and Laurie were we didn't know what to do, you know.
Yeah.
To actually be with him, and but look, I had been in situations with family through my sister where that had happened to her. I was probably a bit more prepared for Robbie, but anyhow, it worked out well. But it wasn't a great week.
No,
and there's no blame on Ricky Stewart. It was just a freak thing on Wayne Pearce. It was just a freak thing that happened.
Freak accident.
Yeah.
You enjoy your time in State of Origin?
Yeah, I did, but I kind of think I never got a chance to see the best of me. Sort of the New South Wales selectors were always a bit sort of, it was like if Petro and Webby had years where they didn't play that very well, but they get picked every year. Do you know what I mean? But with this New South Wales, it was never that. It was like, oh, well, we're going with this guy now. And so if you weren't, you could always live for Origin, you knew that, but by and large, they sort of never really, stuck with, there wasn't a loyalty aspect like there was with Queensland. But yeah, I did enjoy it. I was fortunate to be part of the last team that won 3-0, the whitewash. I think it's 2000 or 2001. I can't remember when Ryan Girdler had a field day, but that's the last time New South Wales have won 3-0.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Which is crazy. But I got to play a week after. A year after. I think that year after. And then I think I got brought back in 2003 or 4 and for one game. But Phil Gould picked me, but then just said, nah. And then the selectors said to me, "We want you for the game 2. Phil doesn't want you." And they said to me, they said that if we pick you, he's just gonna put you on the bench. You won't get any game time. So they actually rang me and told me. Yeah, that was the last sort of one. That was the last Origin game was that one. Remember that Billy Slater did that chip and chase?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was that one. Yeah, so
Yeah.
but I enjoyed it. The best thing was playing for Australia, if I'm honest, because I used to like from young. My mum would get my brother and I up to watch the game in the middle of the night. We'd watch my heroes, Brett Kenny and Sterling, and that era. And I still pinch myself that I got to play against Brett Kenny, but we'd watch those Test matches.
But when they were playing Great Britain.
Yeah, when they were playing Great Britain.
So overseas, so your mum would get you up.
Yeah, because it was at a different time of year. Because it wasn't like now. They played.
They were winter.
Yeah, they were winter.
The seasons would overlap.
Yeah, that's right. So we'd get up and watch the games and. When I went over and played a Test match there, I had like this moment where I was just about to get a kick off, and I was just thinking, like, I wonder what kids watching me, because I was like, I just had this thought, and then I got bashed by Barry McDermott, so I forgot about that.
Mate, so
Big Bazza, did you play against him? Did you miss?
Didn't the Barry McDermott with one eye?
Yeah. He was a hard player, man.
Yeah, I think I probably did towards the back end.
Towards the end?
Yeah, towards the back end. But mate, so playing for Australia must have meant so much to when you got that jersey.
Yeah, because I got the first jersey and I gave it back to my mum because I remember, like, as I said, we had no money growing up. We really didn't. And it wasn't, sometimes, and my mum always went without to get us sort of what we needed to do. And she bought me an Australian jersey. There used to be this shop, Goodfellows, just at Rockdale, and they always had seconds jerseys. But for some year, so we always used to get seconds jerseys. So, like, one letter missing from it was fine. But then she bought me a brand new jersey, an Aussie jersey, and it was like, I lived in it and I never took it off. You know what I mean? And then the fact that I could present her with my first jersey back, was pretty special because it was really against the odds. You know what I mean? Like us ever, because of what we had been through as a family. Like, it was just it was very, very special. So I owe my mum a lot.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, she was.
To be
I don't know. She used to do two jobs, like taking care of a special needs person. Like family of four, like legal secretary at nights, doing aerobic spin classes most nights to make it, like, just amazing woman, very hard working woman, like, because when I became a producer, I said, Mum, you know what, you taught me producing. You showed me how to make something out of nothing, because that's what producing is, finding, when you don't have the resources, finding solutions, and you're the one who's first to set, you're last to set, and you're just in, and she showed me how to be thrifty and how to, like, make a budget last with what she had, and so she really did teach me a lot of producing without an official title. So yeah, she's an incredible woman.
Where did you get your first Australian? Where did you present her with that jersey?
Well, that was in '97. Went over to England when we went over there.
Did she come with you? Or
she came to the one. My whole family came over to the one in 2000. But unfortunately, I got suspended for one of the matches because I had a little incident with Terry O'Connor, which I still argue with him to this day. He never cleared the ruck, and my foot and my studs got in the way of his face. And the funny thing is, about if you watch the replay, the look on Andrew Johns' face gave me up. And when we were in court, you had to go to full-on court there with barristers and, and Chris Anderson, the coach, tried to explain, look, in Australia, you've got to clear the ruck. You've got to clear the He was doing the best he could. They all really stomped on this guy's head. And the funny thing is that, so I got suspended. My family came for the last game and we won. So if you ever get to watch the last game, Chris Anderson had a heart attack at just before half time. And I looked up and he's being stretchered off the coach. So Andrew Johns was was captain coach, and Braithen Astor was at dummy half in the second half. It was a close game, and I think Andrew Johns got tackled, and so Braithen Astor passed me the ball, and I put in a cross kick, which I never would have done if Chris Anderson wasn't in hospital. And we scored.
Did you?
Yeah. McDougall jumped up. I think either Trent Barrett or McDougall jumped up and tapped it back to one of them, and we scored. And that was that was the try that sort of put us like, in front, and sort of we never looked back. So I did a big cross kick, and the commentator said, "Great kick from Andrew Johns. What a like." And then they recorrected them. It says, actually, it was the front rower, Jason Stevens. They said it's good to see him using his foot for a good.
Oh, really?
Was it Steve-O?
Yeah,
Steve-O and
Eddie and Steve-O, yeah.
Oh, he's using his foot for a good. But it was terrible, mate. My whole family came over, and I'm suspended for that week. So, but Jason Rolls came on, and he had a massive game.
Yeah,
a good player,
mate. But that it must have meant. I can't imagine what it was like, that giving your mum that jersey.
Yeah, it was.
Or seeing her son play. Yeah. After she's gone out and bought that, and the story of your family and with your sister, and obviously there's so much love there, but there's a lot of hard work going.
Yeah, there's a lot of love. There is a lot of love. There's a lot of hard work, but that's life. I don't think everyone has their sort of story, I think, but it's brought us together as a family. We're always close, but it's you realise that how much family's worth. You know what I mean? And so the family's worth fighting for. And so if anyone's listening and they've got rifts with their family, it's always worth revisiting and trying to find, because family, at the end of the day, it's the core of our society. A strong family unit, usually translates into a strong society. So, but just for me, I think the story that we haven't touched on, which because I appreciate the time, but also the reconciliation with my dad, who after a long time. We finally got back in touch with and began the journey of forgiveness towards him. I was over in England playing with the Aussie team, and Johnny Lang called my brother and said, "Hey, your dad's boss has called. He's got throat cancer. He just wanted to know if you wanted to go see him." So my dad didn't call. It was his boss to let us know. And so my brother was very instrumental. He didn't want to do it. It's funny how, life points you in certain directions, James, and sort of like my brother was at Bible college at that time because he'd just retired from football, and he didn't want to go and see him. There was a lot of hurt and pain, and the message they spoke that week was on restoring father-son relationships and honouring your father and your mother. And so, because the Bible says that, and it doesn't say honour them if they've been good parents, or it just says honour them. And so that spoke to him quite loudly that he needed to go see him, but he didn't. And then he went, he's a big Star Wars fan, and he went and saw this at one of the museums. They had a Star Wars exhibition, and it was so funny because in that very same week, that they had a big storyboard on what the real meaning of the movie of Star Wars was. And it said it's really a story of restoration between a son and his father. And you go, my goodness, like if the signs are not there to reconcile with this man, then so he went and saw him, and it was very hard because he didn't know who he was. And my dad was rough around the edges, and we began the whole process, and we ended up, we went and saw him, and we forgave him as a family. It was
how
very
do
hard.
you-
My mum. But then he had a stroke, James. That's the thing. He had another stroke, and he was like, for a long time in a home, couldn't walk, couldn't talk for about 6-7 years. But we got to reconcile with him before that happened, which was.
And your mum forgave him as well?
My mum came to the home at Marrickville, and he couldn't walk and talk, but he could because he blinked to know he was understood us and that. And she said, "I just want to let you know I forgive you." And and it was like my dad. You could see it in his face, like he was like stunned. Even though he couldn't move anything, he was like taken aback. And forgiveness is such a big part of our story because no one deserves forgiveness. And I look at it on a spiritual level. I didn't deserve it. God reached out to me and forgave me. And he says, now go and do the same. And on a practical level, there is a saying that says, having unforgiveness is like you swallowing a poison pill and then waiting for that other person to die. So, in other words, unforgiveness kills your spirit. It eats you up. Having unforgiveness in your heart. So the best thing you can do is forgive people. I know it's a journey. You never feel like doing it. Well, you rarely do. But if you don't forgive, you're the one out of anyone that actually you are captive in a sense. You're not free because you're holding on to this poison. You've drank this poison. And half the time, like people who have offended you, they're not even aware of what they've done towards you. They're enjoying their life and you're walking around with a grudge and with anger and it manifests itself in many ways, unforgiveness. And so that's been a big part of our journey. And my brother and my mum really set the tone with doing that. And so I'm a lot more quicker to forgive these days because I do realise the implication for your own well-being as well.
Mate, it's crazy that because it's such an it feels almost unnatural to some people.
It does.
Like I think about the stories of the people involved in, or the family involved in the I Forgive Cup. I also think about, I remember listening to a Holocaust survivor in court. And she just said, I forgive you.
Yeah, powerful.
She was subjected to some of the most inhumane treatment.
Yeah.
And just, I forgive you. And you're like, wow.
Yeah. Well, for me, stories like that just inspire me. But you look at Christ, who loved people to die on the cross for them. These are the same people who whipped and beat him, and the Bible says that he was beaten beyond recognition. So he was beaten so badly you couldn't recognize it was him. And yet what he says, and this is the measure of a man. Because a lot of people say Christianity, it's a crutch, but I said, try and put yourself in Christ's shoes and these people who literally kill him, and he says, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. I'm like, well, microphone drop. Like if anyone can, the mental toughness to actually overlook the extraordinary acts of evil towards him, and in that moment, like that Holocaust survivor, to say, I forgive you, like it's pretty, I need to be reminded of it. A lot of people piss me off. So if I'm being honest, I need to be reminded because, and I piss people off too. You know what I mean? Like I do the wrong thing, and I don't mean to intentionally, but I've often put my foot in stuff, and so, it's a great principle to develop in your life, and it will only benefit you, I think.
It's interesting. Really interesting. Mate, on some of those Australian tours, overseas in Great Britain for an extended period of time, there was some colourful characters on those tours.
Yeah.
As well as you, I actually read your front row partner was Brad Thorne as well. But
yes,
we'll finish with him.
Big Thorny, champion.
Talk to us about some of the more
Well, there was some stuff that happened on our tours. I don't know if you
entertaining characters. On tour.
I mean, there was some stuff that happened on our tour.
Like in the
I mean, Gordon's been pretty vocal about it, about drugs and stuff and that. It was all happening. And, he was pretty angry by some of the stuff that was happening. But I think I roomed with. One of the times I roomed with Brad Thorne, and we're still in regular contact because, he graciously, he doesn't need to, but he credits me with helping him find faith, and he actually, after the tour, he became a Christian, and then Alfie Langer used to like sing Kumbaya and just mock the hell out of him at training, but he's such a big beast of a man, you know what I mean?
Pick on him at your
mate, he's one of the. I think he's the best duel to ever.
Just don't tell Wendell.
But mate, there were a lot of colourful characters. But to be honest, I still, when I played, like you think about that side, we had like Andrew Johns, Brad Fittler, Darren Lockyer, Webby, Thorny, like Wendell, like just incredible. I'm not saying this because I'm in that team. Honestly, I'm not. I was just there for the ride because they would like, but I'm like, I find it hard to beat, to find a better sort of Aussie team. I got to say, I mean, Ryan Girdler was like Matt Gidley, like it's just like every single player was like unbelievable. I got to say, and I thought I was just very privileged to be part of that team, So I saw Joey the other week and gave him a hug, and it's like those bonds that you get, they last forever, as I'm sure they have with you,
Absolutely, Matt. With Thorny, how much did you influence him with the?
Yeah, because my brother and I played a really good role. His brother was a missionary and used to smuggle Bibles into China.
God, I thought you were going to say something else then. He was a missionary, but his brother.
Yeah, so there had been that influence of his brother, and then my brother connected with him really well when he was over here and had a really good influence on him. But then, we just talked about. I think we just talked about stuff. You know what I mean? And it's got to be important to you because like you take Robbie Kearns. We've roomed so much, and I've talked till I can't talk anymore about. And even the other week I saw him, I got a big hug, and it's got to become important for you to take it on if you see value in it, So, like he's been a great encourager to me in his faith. He's I think because he's got such a presence to him, man. As a player, I had so much respect for him. Like I put a hit on him once, and he dropped the ball from a tap, and he like picked me up like a little kid, like good hit. He just said good hit, and my shoulder was numb. My shoulder was numb for the whole game. I couldn't lift my shoulder up because I threw everything. I said if I can put a hit on Brad Thorne, it'll just send a message. You know what I mean? And I did, but like he was just like. Next, and I was like, I couldn't play for the rest of the game. I was trying to lift my shoulder. He was a great player. So yeah, what he accomplished in rugby union,
mate,
insane. But yeah, he loves God and family, and he's at church every week, and he's we talk about scriptures together, and if there's any, if anyone sort of ever talks about Christianity being a soft option, I always sort of mention his name.
All right, time for this section of the show, brought to you by Tooheys, the Tooheys Spine. Tooheys is all about teamwork, players supporting each other. So we get every single guest to go through their best spine that they've ever played with. So the 1, 6, 7, 9, not necessarily in the same team. You've mentioned some pretty handy players there. So
that I've played with.
Oh, but you can be who you played against, maybe.
Well, I would say Andrew Johns. At half, I'd say Brad Fittler. At 5'8", I'd say Cameron Smith, and at fullback, I'd say Lockie.
It's not a bad little spine, that is it?
Yeah. Great.
That
team.
Did you play with Cameron Smith?
I didn't play. I played against him.
Played against him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would have
But
loved to play
with the other three.
Yep, played with him. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty handy spine. Thanks for sharing that with us. That's brought to you by Tooheys. They're all about teamwork at Tooheys, so
I love Tooheys new. It's. Do I send my address for a
mate?
We'll get you
some Tooheys sorted out, mate. I'll come and knock on with them.
If I'm ringing in 2 weeks' time, if I'm texting Charlie and go, "Where's my Tooheys new?"
mate,
I'll be upset.
I'll come personally deliver it to you, and we'll crack on together on that pristine, on that almost like the $1 billion view you've got. So, yeah. And then also 3 questions we have for each and every guest. A sliding doors moment you think about what the alternative would have been had it have been that way. If you ever stop and think and wonder.
I stop and think what would have happened if my brother and I didn't go and play cricket across the road when my sister had the accident. Not often think, but I have thought, if we didn't go that day, But there's always good that comes out of hardship. So, but yeah, that's definitely something I've thought of.
Yeah. What you'd be doing if football hadn't been invented? I suppose maybe acting.
Well, I think
if football was a bit of a segue into that.
I think definitely the real calling that is going to be entertainment, and it's going to be like, I kind of feel the next few years like it's going to go on a trajectory upward pretty rapidly. You heard it here first, James.
I'm looking forward to it, mate. I really am.
Can you come to the next?
As long as I get plenty of notice, yes. I did genuinely have something.
No, I know you're busy, and I'm just going to put that out there, Charlie. Don't even ask to. You're not coming.
Oh, mate, it probably clashes with his.
He's got a spa.
Yeah.
He's got a spa.
Yeah, he's like, his monthly bear. Oh, I'm 28 and a half this week. Yeah. The most interesting person that you've met in your journey?
I think the most. Look, obviously, my mum has been she's come from. She was born in Egypt. She moved to England, lived in Hornchurch, Essex, and came over here. She's lived a pretty. But I would say, apart from her, Harry Eden, who I got to know really well, because he was this bookmaker, a legal SB booker. He had a heart of gold, and he would do anything for anyone. He'd go to a homeless person. He'd go up to random who we thought had a single mother and say, here's some money. He was just a generous man. And then this other side of him, if you crossed him, you didn't want to. So, but yeah, very interesting man.
I like those type of people that have got that.
He really
a couple of sides to them.
Yeah. And he grew up in a boarding. He had a pretty hard sort of, a different upbringing and so forth. And yeah, but he would be for sure.
Yeah. Well, that just about wraps us up, mate.
Thank you so much, Jimmy.
Mate. Thank you. I've enjoyed this chat. The time's flown by.
Oh,
obviously,
thanks,
I was needing it about. I think you're only the second guest I've ever had to stop for a bathroom break for. So that tends to suggest the conversation was going somewhere. So
Oh.
I genuinely sat down here today, not really knowing, and I loved it because it's interesting. It's not just all football. There's other sides to it as well, which again I really enjoy, and I think everybody here at the Buy Around wishes you all the best in your future endeavours. I'm excited to see how Cupid goes. I think you've got some legs there with that.
I haven't yet, but it will. And who knows who's listening to this podcast? Exactly. Russell could be. He could be. I think that's Chase. You don't know who's listening, mate. You don't.
You don't, do you? We get some random likes and follows on our socials. So you just never know.
It's gonna. I honestly believe with all my heart, it's gonna happen. And I'll come back, and I'll share the true story about the leading up to it and why it's going to happen and all that stuff. So that's if you have me back, and that's depending on if I get that case of beer.
Yeah. So. Mate, the case of beer is coming. I'm telling you, you're going to get a knock at the door. I'm going to say we're going to have this Tooheys together.
But can you get a proper guy who researches me? Because you missed out that I was Cleo Bachelor runner-up of the year. I beat Chris Hemsworth that year.
Did you?
Yes, mate. Charlie's got no idea. I beat Hemsworth, and then we don't even mention that kind of stuff. So there's a lot more to talk about next time.
How old were you?
Let's save it. Let's save
that for episode 2, Charlie. Mate, you're on your last warning. All right, thanks everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed listening to this as much as I did, sitting here with Jason Stevens. It was fascinating. I genuinely love the conversation.
Same.